I look, man, I'm gonna keep it a beam with you like some goddamn Mexican food. Society is psychologically enslaving you. Yes, sir. Let me say that again. Society is psychologically enslaving you. And when I say that, I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm not trying to tell you the Matrix is after you. I'm not trying to tell you that all these things in life are coming out to get you. But what I am saying is for you to understand how society has essentially subversed you into believing certain things to sabotage your self-worth and your self-growth on this journey to embodying your highest self. So let's break this bitch down real quick like a brick for y'all. Now, when you start understanding psychology and you start understanding the inner workings of your own mind, of your own psyche, you're gonna realize that a lot of the habits, a lot of the identities and attachments you've built across your lifetime are actually formed within the first couple of years of your life, within the years of your childhood. Because at that moment, your brain is like Play-Doh. It can be molded and shifted and formed into whatever shape that the programming is gonna set you towards. So it could be programming from your parents, it could be programming from school, but today we're gonna be talking about the programming overall. Society. Society is a set of rules, a set of regulations, a set of morals, a set of standards, and a set of expectations that keeps people stuck within that barrier of not being able to express themselves to the fullest extent. And this is done through all those psychological programmings. This is done through all these types of ways to essentially instill those rules, regulations, morals, and standards into a child, so when he grows up, he'll follow a certain agenda. He'll follow the path that society has laid out for him. I'm not saying that's evil, I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just telling you that is what it is. It's the truth. Why are you trying to fight or go against the quote-unquote matrix, this and that, when in reality, it just is what it is? The best thing you can do is understand these concepts I'm trying to lay out for you and then apply it into your life to help you break out of the quote-unquote NPC mindset, which I'll be breaking down more in depth and in detail on the private Patreon community. Shout out to the private Patreon community. If you want to join up, get access to exclusive videos, in-depth occult lectures, full guides, monthly masterminds, and much more, go check out all the links posted in the pinned comment of this video. You're going to be able to get into one-on-one consultations, coaching packages, all that good stuff. Everything's going to be posted in that pinned comment, so run it up. But I'm going to be breaking down more of how you can break out of the NPC mindset, and that is through psychological knowledge, psychological wisdom, because like I've said before, psychology essentially is a prerequisite to understanding bigger and more dense and more philosophical and spiritual ideas. Because when you start understanding how the mind works, you're going to be able to trace back the steps all the way up to the spiritual plane, because I've talked about so much on this channel before. The spiritual plane is the highest plane. Whatever happens down there will trickle down into the mental plane. That's why you have to understand psychology, and then the mental plane will act it out onto the physical, and this is what you see within your reality. So all this stuff is happening on different realms and different layers, but we're going to be focusing more on the psychological side of it. And when you start realizing that, hey man, I'm not really in control of my own mind. Like, I already have all these biological impulses that low-key hijack my mind and hijack my brain to act in certain ways and behave in certain ways. But there's also preset programs and preset systems and functions that I didn't choose, that were essentially instilled into me as a child, and now they've been carrying on throughout my adult life, throughout my young adulthood, throughout my old age. And I can't seem to break out of them. Because if you don't understand the concept of a default mode network when it comes to your brain, that I've talked about before on this channel, when it comes to topics like psychedelics, it is the preset mode to your brain, preset function to your brain. If this happens, you're gonna act in this way. Your brain doesn't want to have so much overload. It doesn't want to think so much. It's gonna choose a path of least resistance. So the thing that you are always accustomed to doing is gonna make that instinctual for you, habitual for you. If I turn off all the lights in your house and I told you to go brush your teeth, you would be able to go out of your room, go find the bathroom, get your toothbrush, get the toothpaste, and start brushing your teeth, even though it's all dark because you've done it so many times. Well, hopefully you are brushing your fucking teeth, stank ass breath. So it's essentially instilled into you. It's like habitual. You don't have to think about it. And that is essentially what's happening with the programs of life, the programs of society. Society's instilling that into you. That you have to go to school and do this, that you have to go get married and do this, that you have to go live out this life, that this is what it means to be successful. And some of those things you might actually think are your versions of success, but most of the time, us as men, especially men, don't have our vision of what we want in reality, don't have our inner vision come out to light. We just believe this version of success that somebody told me is the only version of success. What my parents told me is the only version of success. What my friends are doing is the only version of success. What society, school, my teachers, and what I see on social media saying is success is the only version of it. You picking up what I'm putting down, you don't think for yourself, you don't inquire, you don't realize things, you don't actually question these things in life. Maybe being a millionaire is being the pinnacle of success for you. While for some other people, it's living out in the country with their family and living out a simple life. Either one is success because it's all in your own mind. It's all what you paint out the picture. Yet you're letting someone else take the paintbrush and paint out the picture for you, and then you're just signing your name at the bottom. That yeah, I did this painting. Yeah, that's mine. When in reality, you didn't choose this. You did not choose this. So when you start realizing this, when you start inquiring, when you start getting into things like journaling, meditation, introspection, you're gonna start to it's gonna click that, man, I've been on autopilot mode my entire life because society told me this, because society told me that, because my parents are doing this, because my friends are doing that, because my family told me this is the best way to go. That is the tipping point. That is when you start waking up from this illusion, from all the distractions, from all the programmings, from all the essential systems that life has constrained you into, that has constrained your psychology into, that has constrained your mind and your psyche into. You want to start breaking out of that because it is like a lock. It's like a cage. When you put a bird in a cage, it's not going to be able to express all the qualities of being a bird. It can't fly out of the cage. It can't feel free. The same aspect goes to your mind, to your soul, to your overall beingness. These are psychological cages. And society builds it in a way where it's a cage that you don't even notice. It's a cage that you don't even realize because there's so many quote unquote little treats that it gives you while you're in the cage. Here's a little bit of porn. Here's a little bit of hookup culture. Here's a little bit of sex. Here's a little bit of fast food. Here's a little bit of video games. Here's a little bit of entertainment, social media, dopamine. So you don't realize it because you're just like, your dopamine goes up and you go back down. Dopamine goes up, goes back down. You don't actually sit in that silence, get bored, and get quote unquote frustrated. Like, hey, bro, what the fuck am I doing in life? What is this shit? What am I here for? Am I really doing this life for my own benefit, for the benefit of other people? Am I actually becoming a divine vessel for God to actually act out a supreme will that was brought here to accomplish? Or am I just going with the flow? Am I just going where everyone else is doing? Am I actually making decisions for myself? Am I actually controlling my life? Or did someone choose this path for me and I followed it blindly because I was getting these little treats on the way? If you've watched Family Guy, there's this one little clip that Peter Griffin has a bunch of candies on the floor, and he picks up a piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy, eats it. Ooh, piece of candy, eats it. Ooh, piece of candy, eats it. And he goes right into like a little box, almost like a rat trap, and they just close the box on him. That is what's happening in society all the time. That's why it's happening to you. That's what's happening to me until we realize it, until we actually snap out of it, and we realize, hey man, these things are just kind of pulling my attention, pulling my focus away from what I really want to do in life. And a lot of people don't even know what they want to do in life because all their attention, all their focus is being pulled away from actually thinking about that, from actually putting energy and effort and attention and focus towards self-inquiry and realizing what their innate purpose is in life. What are the type of skills and innate gifts that they were gifted to by God that can help humanity as a whole, that can build value to the world, that can bring value to the overall consciousness of humanity. People don't think about these things. People don't actually sit down, reflect, meditate, and just let those thoughts marinate in their mind. They're just so engulfed in this little dopamine chase. Piece of candy, the piece of candy, piece of candy, dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. Sex, drugs, alcohol, social media, consumerism, this, that. Like, it's just all there in front of you. And this is how society psychologically enslaves you. They give you this path as a child, and they kind of mold it into you, so it's a part of your identity. And when it's a part of your identity, your ego will defend that identity like it's being attacked, like it's being literally, like it's a life or death situation. Like, if you've ever had a conversation with someone and you trigger that ego nerve in them, like maybe they're very into a certain sports team. They grew up in this area. It's kind of like bred it into their identity. And you're like, you like sports too, and you just kind of like bantering back and forth, and then you strike a nerve in them. They're like, fuck you, bro, like fuck your team, fuck this, fuck that. Like, it hits a nerve in them, because that's the ego essentially kind of attacking the other person, kind of trying to defend themselves from this attack. They believe it as attacking their identity. Same thing with religion, same thing with other things that you identify with. But true spirituality, true spiritual knowledge, that's why it's so important. It breaks off all those identities. You're detached from them. You're detached from this concept that I am this, I am X person from this place, from born at this time, I follow this, I follow that. Spirituality, like true spiritual wisdom, will give you the knowledge that you are that. You are all. You're not confined into one thing. You go from limited to limitless. You're limiting yourself, and society is limiting you and your potential by making, or like force feeding you, these identities. Even things that we can get even deeper with it, which I will on the private Patreon community, but even things like your race, your name, your age, all these things are identifications that are man-made to measure something, to keep everything organized in line, and to follow a certain agenda. I'm not saying they're bad, I'm not saying they're evil, I'm not telling you to forget about your name, forget about your age. It's just, I'm giving you some insights to how this is all programmed and preset for you to attach yourself to an identity, and then the ego will counteract and defend that identity, and then it's so hard to get out of that identity. It feels like you're fighting yourself. It feels like you're going into a war and wrestling with yourself, because you don't know who's the true self, who's the true you, but you've been fooled into believing that this is you, this is everything that you are throughout your childhood. That's why a lot of people who get onto the spiritual path, who get onto the road to self-mastery, have usually a traumatic experience. It could be through psychedelics, it could be through something where it kind of shifted their perspective in life, and then that, in essence, broke that ego in them. And that experience where your ego starts to shatter and break and go into bits and pieces finally forces you and finally allows you to look at things for what they truly are. And you don't need those experiences to actually psychologically break you out of that system, psychologically break you out of the NPC mindset, but they force you. That's why a lot of people have those moments in their life before they get onto the spiritual path, before they actually start revealing the truth to themselves, start uncovering the layers of the ego, of these identities, of these attachments, and get to their core essence, to the core truth of their nature, of the nature of human reality and this existence. So I'm not telling you go out and go have a traumatic experience, or go out and do psychedelics, or go out and just shatter your ego into pieces. What I'm telling you is that these types of things can be instilled into you in a more practical manner, in a more smooth, streamlined, efficient way, instead of like just frying your brain out or just having a crazy traumatic experience happening. But you need that point, you need that tipping point, you need that experience, or that overall situation, that you really start questioning reality for what it is. Because if you do not, you're always going to be in this state of ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss. I don't know what I what do I want in life. Society's going to tell me, and this one's going to tell me, and then I'm going to be like just in a state of confusion, in a state of not having any direction or focus in life. And as a man, that is essential to actually becoming the best version of yourself. You need to have a direction. You need to have some focus. You need to have concentration and your attention over to what it is that you were brought here to do. And I'm not trying to tell you you need to like just choose a goal and go after it. Yes, that's great. What I would rather tell you to do is connect inwardly and connect to that inner guide or that inner guru and that inner voice that will actually guide you to where you really need to go. Because I can't tell you where to go. I can give you the tools to actually be able to listen to that inner voice, listen to that inner guru, and listen to that inner guide, and they will actually bring you to the mountaintop. Because each and every single one of us, like I've talked about before on this channel, has that phone line to God. And they have the phone line to their lower self, or quote unquote the devil, Satan, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to label things and make it seem like, oh, there's some guy with a pitchfork under the earth flaming and telling you, hey, do this, do that. It's your lower self, the animalistic side of you, the degenerate side of you, that doesn't want to evolve. It's not evil, it's not bad, it's just stuck in a state of de-evolution, not actually striving for evolution of the mind, body, and soul. And then there's a side of you that connects you to the God within, the higher self. Society drowns out the higher self and ups the volume of the lower self. And it puts all those identifications, attachments to the lower self. I am all these materialistic pursuits. I believe success is always with these material things. I believe that X, Y, and Z is what I am, and this is what makes me happy. The higher self is focused. I'm not saying the higher self is not going to allow you to get materialistic things, because yes, they're just part of life, but they're focused on higher pursuits. What am I here for? What is the nature of reality? What is all these things that these greatest philosophers, spiritual leaders, and the most impactful and influential people, the shakers and movers of reality, pondered? This is what allows you to do it. And then when you further connect to that, by breaking off the ego to this and tapping back more into the inward self, the inner guru, the inner guide, the more you're going to realize that intuition and that direction of coming from God, from the universe, from the divine source, to actually help you navigate throughout this game we call life. The more you do that, the louder it gets, the more the volume ups on this side, and the more the volume on this side starts to lower. This is what you really need to do to break yourself out of the NPC mindset, to break yourself out of these psychological constraints society has put onto you. It's not by getting a bunch of money. It's not by becoming a YouTuber. It's not by becoming the richest person alive. It's not by becoming the most jacked person ever. It's not by becoming the most famous person ever. It's about listening to that inner guide, because that inner guide, that inner guru, and that highest self knows what you were brought here to do. And if you don't accomplish that goal, you don't walk on that path, you're always going to feel empty. You're always going to feel unfulfilled. You're always going to feel directionless. And this is why so many men in the modern world feel lost. They don't have that guide. And this is what you can refer to as the Heavenly Father, if you want to believe into the Christian side of perspective. This is the Heavenly Father, your highest self. This whole world is more coddled into that feminine nature and more pushed onto that everything is fine, everything is good, just do this, follow me, just take my hand, I'll bring you down into whatever path. The Heavenly Father, the inner guide, the inner guru will tell you what you need to hear. It'll be uncomfortable, but it'll guide you to the place that you always were meant to go, and make you and mold you into the man you were always meant to be. That is what a father is supposed to do. But this is doing it on a higher level, on a spiritual level, not just your physical father, but your spiritual father. And this is just an emanation or archetype of the masculine, or of the divine masculine. That is what we're lacking in the world today. That is what your psychology is missing. That's why it's yearning to look for another direction. It's missing that inner direction. So it's going to go to, okay, society or the government or my school or my teachers tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. A good father would tell a kid the advice that it's generated throughout his lifetime to help them figure out their own decision, not tell them exactly what to do. Like if you bring a kid swimming, when you're a father, when you eventually become a father, if that's part of your path, you're gonna throw him in the water. I'm gonna chuck my kid in the fucking water, bro. But I'm gonna tell him, hey, bro, calm down. I'm not gonna like float with him and stuff like that. Like, I'm gonna tell him, hey, bro, paddle, paddle, paddle. It's gonna be uncomfortable. You might drown, but you're in the deep end now. And once you realize that, and once you are okay with being in the unknown, the darkness, the void, and you start searching towards that inner guide, that inner guru, which is the Father speaking from the whatever you want to call it, like the pier or something when you throw your kid off. You hear that guide and it's giving you the instructions. Okay, paddle right, left, right, left, right, left. Keep your head up, keep your head up. That is what's gonna get you out of that situation. And when you're out of that situation, how much cooler is it when you're actually able to swim versus you're always in a life vest because society tells you to go this way and go that way, and you're just getting pulled by the flow of the river. You're not actually able to control your movements in the water, control your movements in the overall ocean of life. This is just an analogy I'm bringing out. Hopefully you're picking up what I'm putting down. But that in essence is what we need. We need that in our lives and we're missing it. And this is what this whole message of my brand is about. Mastering the mind, body, and soul. I'm trying to give you all the tools to actually help awaken that inner guide to your overall development in your spiritual and mental and physical journey. It isn't just enough to be jacked. It isn't just enough to be smart. It isn't just enough to be rich. You need all these aspects to really break yourself out of the system, out of the matrix, out of the Maya, and out of the illusion to actually tap into your true essence. That is what each and every single one of us yearns for. We think that money will get to us to that point because society tells us it will get you to that point. We think that getting muscles will get you to that point because society tells us it'll get to that point. We think that if we get this girlfriend, it'll get us to that point because that's what society tells us. That's what you see on social media. That's what is being fed to your inner monologue. A lot of the times, that voice in your head, that internal monologue, is not yours. It's just repeating all the things that you see on social media, that you've been taught as a kid, that you've been taught at school, that you've been taught at your overall upbringing. You're just repeating it over and over and over again. You're not actually feeding yourself the information, the knowledge, the wisdom through videos like this, through ancient texts, through things that will actually improve your life. Listening to the people that actually walk this path of self-mastery, that became the highest version of themselves. You're listening to bullshit, to junk, to nonsense. And society planned it for that way because the more you put it into the subconscious mind, the more it becomes a part of your identity. The more it becomes a part of your identity, the more the ego surrounds it in a barricade and a force field. But the only thing that will slice through that force field and break out of these attachments is through understanding psychology first, then getting into spiritual knowledge and spiritual wisdom. That's the only thing. And being true with yourself and awakening that higher self, allowing you to navigate this plane of reality. So, in essence, what I'm really trying to relate to you is be vigilant and be focused on that internal monologue in your head and be aware of what you're doing in life. Stop being on autopilot mode. Take a step back. This is why things like meditation is so beneficial. A lot of people think, oh, okay, it's just to relieve stress. No, it's about actually sitting in silence and listening to that inner self. If you get in deep stages of meditation, you know what I'm talking about. If you tapped into the private Patreon community and you're doing the pranayama breathwork routines that I post on there, you know what I'm talking about, because we're really tapping into our biological system and leveraging things like the air, prana, the elements to get us into those higher states of consciousness. You'll be able to realize that, man, when I'm in those deep stages of meditation, I feel bliss, euphoric, and I feel a connection to something higher, something greater. And then when I get out of that meditation, why do I have all these intuitions? Why do I have all these insights? Why do I have all these ideas? Why do I have all this energy to help pursue towards a bigger goal in life? Because now you're tapping into the higher self. Now you're detaching from all the stimulus of the external world, of society trying to program you, and you're coming back inwardly. That's what you really need to focus on after you watch this video. to actually ingrain in your mindset, because the more you allow your attention to be pulled in different directions, the more you won't have an actual direction to follow. The more you're just going to be looking for something to grasp onto. And these are just temporary ropes that you're holding onto. Okay, I'm going to go chase after this. I'm going to go chase after that. I'm going to go chase after that. That dopamine rush. It's never going to make you feel fulfilled. It's never going to make you feel like you're actually doing a big purpose in life. That you're actually following towards a higher pursuit. That you're actually embodying your highest self mentally, physically, and spiritually. You're never going to feel that, because you're always allowing other people to tell you how to get to that point. I'm not trying to tell you. I'm not trying to give you the exact steps and plans of what you need to do in life. I'm trying to give you the exact steps and plans of how to find those exact steps and plans. Are you picking up what the fuck I'm putting down, man? Come on now. This is truly something that hopefully you guys, as my audience, will let it marinate in your mind and let it marinate in your overall beingness that, yeah, man, I've been on autopilot for far too long. I feel like a lot of these identities and attachments I have that my ego builds a fortress around are just things that society told me, are just things that I just grew up with. Is that really who I am? Is that really what I want? Let me question these things. And it's difficult and it's weird and it's uncomfortable when you question your own identity. But this is what's needed to grow. When you go in the gym, if you're just doing 135 pounds on the bench press and you've done it for X amount of years, you're not going to grow your muscles. You got to add on more weight. And that more weight is more energy, attention, and questioning things. It's uncomfortable. You're going to struggle. You're not going to be able to get 10 reps. Now maybe you only get 5, maybe you get 6. But you keep working through that. And guess what? Those muscles will develop. And same things with those internal and psychological muscles. They'll develop. This is what philosophers do. This is what the way of all the greatest minds in the world do. They question things. They don't just allow other people to tell them exactly what it is. They question. If you're one of those kids in school or in all these classes, and we're the one who are like, hey man, what does this mean? Hey teacher, what the fuck does that mean? You have that innate genius in you. That's awakening. It's awaiting to be awakened. But you've numbed it down because social media is so enticing. All these dopamine things are so enticing. All these different temptations are so enticing that you lose that inner child, the inner spark. You need to reawaken that. That will help you break out of this system, because like I talked about before on this channel, your inner child already knows your purpose. And that is one of your fastest routes to tapping into your higher self, is that inner child. And when you tap into the inner child, it's essentially undoing the layers of attachments and identities that you've built up from those early stages of childhood. Psychology is so important, man. You don't realize how much of your whole life is being dictated on that. That's being dictated by these programmings that you have set in your mind. The more you're able to realize it, understand it, and grasp these concepts, the more you're going to be able to navigate this physical plane even better. And the more you're going to be able to connect to the spiritual planes even better. It's a mediator in between the two, like I've talked about. The mind or the psychology or your psyche is a mediator in between the spiritual, the higher realms, and the physical, the lower realms. Master that. And then you'll be able to connect more to the spiritual and be able to control more into the physical. It's really that simple. It's not easy, but this is just some things that you need to wrestle with within your mind and develop that psychological muscle that's been atrophying over time. You need some hypertrophy in that bitch. You need to add in some juice. No steroids, but add some juice into your mind. And that is by actually working it out. Questioning, inquiring, introspecting, looking back, reflecting, all these things, man. So hopefully you picking up what I'm putting down, man, because it's been your boy out here in the field, in the flesh, dropping out that game so you guys can make these games, and I'm out of here. Peace.